Hello, my name is Omar Ampersad. It's December 5th, Wednesday, 2018 at 2:13 p.m. in Toronto. So I am going to talk about the continuing targeting. And so I did some videos yesterday and on previously, other days. So yesterday, and they're all to do with the targeting, but yesterday I talked about being fired. So I'm going to talk a little bit about being let go from the jobs previous to this one that I just got let go from. Um, there is a consistency in the last five jobs that I've had, and other ones, but I'm going to focus in on the last five jobs. There is a pattern that's developed in the last few years, couple of years, especially in the last year, and this is being hired. In fact, the job before this one, um, I was called immediately after I interviewed, and the job before that, I had actually accepted another position, and the person emailed me saying to reconsider. So there seemed to be um, a demand, for lack of a better word, for me. And when I go in consistently and I start work from day one, um, I am being harassed as a prostitute, somebody who F's herself, as a target, a target. I'm on a list. We chose you. These are consistent remarks in the last 4 or 5 jobs I've had, in which I was let go after short periods of time, weeks, months. The last one, 2 weeks. Um, Also, especially at the company called Give and Go, I was harassed by these names: Gokaran, Jay, Sylvan. These are people I work with in the AP department. Shilan, and there's some other Pam. These are all people within the AP department. And I was harassed with the contents of the report that was released about me in the workplace. And I felt unsafe, especially when men would come around my desk or shout from the other side of the floor. Rick, who had joined me, and Ricardo, who was working with him in the sales department, they would shout from the other end of the floor these nasty remarks. Stop effing yourself. You're my wife. I could see you. I'm living with you. Rick, especially. I heard Rick, who's a black man from the Caribbean, joined me, and he was living with me remotely. And he got the password and the link from the Chinese co-workers who was telling him about what the situation in the building, about my being flagged and being monitored and so on. So this scenario was played out in other companies, but at Give and Go it was extremely, extremely, extremely bad. And I ended up in the emergency ward with what I'm suspecting to be a laser attack outside the building when I was having lunch. And it's interesting that just before that attack, the suspected attack, I should say, it was summertime, and I would go out to have lunch. And when I did, these black people would drive up and scout out the area and illegally surveil me. This is what I think was actually going on. They were coming around and scouting out the area, and then driving off. They wouldn't go into the building. They would just come in, park, sit, look, and leave. And at the time, I heard that Rick had his name on the account. and he was responsible for me because he was monitoring me. So is it possible that when I ended up in the emergency ward with this extreme burning sensation around my heart and more around my stomach area and the heart area, I should say, that this was a laser attack? Because I immediately, my feet, let me think now. So immediately after I got hit, I started feeling nauseous and really, really weak. So I sat for a little bit, then I shakily got up and I went into the building. And I couldn't go further than the reception area, so I sat on the sofa in the reception area for about 10 minutes. And I was like sweating like 5 times more than you'd sweat as if you were in a sauna for 20 minutes and you start perspiring. Well, the drops that was coming out of my pores were 5 times bigger than that, and I was drenched with perspiration. So my body was trying to cool off because I was heated up. Now, what would cause that? That sudden increase in temperature to the point where your body had to cool itself down by such like beads of perspiration was just running down my skin. I was drenched. My clothes was drenched, utterly drenched, sticking to me. What would cause such sudden heating? It could possibly be a laser attack. Keeping in mind that that I was being targeted and harassed in the company and passed around. And the person who had their name on the account was the person who was more aggressive in their harassment, in harassing me and making comments about the contents of the report and coming around me. So Rick, this black man who I was never introduced to, and I had no contact with him because I was in accounting, he was in sales. In fact, I avoided him. He would come around my desk and around Gokaran's desk quite often and talk about the contents of this report and say things like, "You're my wife now." And he was harassing me, criminally, viciously harassing me. I was away about 7 days in 4 months, sick. I was also being gerbiled in the workplace and hit on my stomach, I suspect, from gangs that were working with the people inside of the company. Like Rick, I heard, was working with Ranty or was working with my sister-in-law. And these people would co-sign this contract to surveil. And other people will work with other people, with other monitors outside of the company and be a source for the person whose name is on the account. And this person would tell outside gangs who could image from the outside what to do, like hit you on the stomach, hit you in the eyes, hit you between the legs. Exactly what I'm tweeting about in this building is exactly what happened really aggressively at Give and Go and the last job that I was fired from in 2 weeks. There is a consistency here. So I just wanted to make some comments on what I suspect is being reported about me from these companies, because they're taking the contract to surveil and then they're submitting the file back with a report and getting new flags that extends the time to, that requires me to be monitored. I'm at risk, I'm suicidal, I'm sick, I stalk, I steal, I'm soliciting, I'm picking people up, I'm waiting for men. These are deliberate lies that people from the workplace are telling the police in these reports just to get a flag in the system and continuing and to have the monitoring continued so they can get the contract and pass me around. And the passing around is extended. The surveillance that is a result of being passed around, because passing around mean people. It means that various people are taking turns to surveil me. And the criminals, especially the Chinese traffickers working from this building, are hooking on to that process of surveillance and taking advantage of it, and extending the surveillance inside of my home, inside of bathrooms and so on, via silhouette, satellite tracked silhouette format surveillance. Your body's seen as a silhouette, so there's no privacy through walls because this is a microwave-based technology. So the traffickers are taking advantage of this setup and are trafficking under this cover. So when you're sleeping, they can log on, the person who has the password and the link, because this building is installed. They can log on and they could gerbil and remotely rape you with the password and the link. So that password and the link is sold. So to extend the cover for the trafficking, the flagging has to be continuous and the monitoring has to continue. So I heard that Badr Nizar signed me out of the system because I was flagged in this building. And he started reporting, because in order to put me back into the system, he has to do a report. And there's a format that's given to him, a package from the city, I heard, and he had to tick boxes off. And he had people vote on what boxes he had to tick off. And I suspect, I heard, I should say, that he ticked off that I was sexually harassing him. Mind you, he was monitoring me illegally. I suspect, based on this this setup. And and from that point on, his reports were piggybacked on, because these reports are supposed to reflect the truth, because these people who are signing you out are sources to the police. And when these reports are submitted to the police, they're uploaded into the system. And I'm being threatened constantly about making it final. Because if it's final, then you have a criminal report about you that has to process out. At that point, they're going to give you due process. So another trigger for me is you're going to be picked up. Well, on top of I'm sorry, let me say that again. You're going to be picked up. We have a time for you. We have a date for you. These are triggers. You're going to, we're going to extend it. We have another ticket. We have another flag. We had a 3-time flag. These monitors, I heard, have 10-time limit to call the EMS or the truck to check me out because there's an emergency, supposedly. So there's 10 times, and then 10 times you get some kind of a permanent record, and then at 3 times you get another permanent record. So this loop is being spun over and over and over and over and over again. So it's a loophole in the system that is being taken advantage of in order to traffic. So I'm talking about give and go because I ended up in the hospital, and what I suspect is that I was lasered as a result of being targeted by, and I'm going to call the name Rick because he was very, very, very aggressive in his targeting. And he mentioned the name Ranty and my sister-in-law as well. He kept on mentioning that I should pay back my sister-in-law and pay back whoever. It's interesting to note that any monies lent to me by any members of the family is is on the basis of pay as you can. And my brother actually didn't ask me to pay it back because he died and he left everything to the wife, my sister-in-law. And it was not a small amount. So, of course, I intend to pay her back, but I'm just saying my brother didn't take the money from me when I offered it. So, as to why Rick, first of all, why Rick knows. Second of all, why is he harassing me about it in the workplace? But let me go back to the laser. The reason why I'm saying it could be a laser attack is because I suspect that Rick was working with outside gangs to have me hit with a laser because he wanted me in the hospital to teach me a lesson because of this report that's been circulated about me portraying me as a criminal prostitute. Now, the same scenario, to a lesser degree, but with the same effect, played out in the last job and played out in other jobs before that to a lesser degree. But at Give and Go, it was over the top. It was extreme. So they're using this harassing program in the back, triggering me intentionally, and recording the results of being triggered and taking it back to the magistrate or courts and using it as backup to extend the monitoring and have me flagged. Criminal activity. And the cops who are working with them, of course, is taking part in the criminal activity. While there is not going to be any violence in my triggering, because I deal with my anger in a constructive way, it's interesting to note that Rohini Besasa was written up in the articles about her as having performed a random act of stabbing somebody. It is my suspicion, strong suspicion, that this was no random act. The person she stabbed was probably most likely a stalker because she was on an alert system before Rohini Besasar. So if there was an alert that went out about her, then people would mob her. And the manager, the name on her account, would tell the mob how to trigger her in order to get information, quote unquote, to report back in this report that's submitted. So they were reporters. So in order to get something to report, they have to incite anger and instigate situations. So I suspect that this person was talking on the phone and she intentionally triggered a reaction. Unfortunately, that reaction was one that proved to be detrimental. But, and that's a whole different issue I'm not going to go into. One stab wound with a small knife, and she walked away. She didn't intend to kill, but the person died. So that's a different issue. But the trigger was an intentional act of inciting anger. Had she survived, and the whole case was investigated with the view of Rohini Besasa being trafficked, then the person, the stalker, should have been charged with inciting anger and violence, I suspect. Talk to you another time.